Okay, so welcome back to our YouTube channel. Today we're going to do another episode of Keys to Success. We're super excited. We have a special guest, Baye McNeil. He's, I guess, many things. So, best-selling author, successful blogger, newspaper columnist, activist. I think Baye is probably most famous for drawing attention to the use of blackface, actually by Japanese comedians and singers. Actually drew a global audience to this kind of issue. Appeared on the BBC, on CNN. Actually was requested to go to a major Japanese broadcasting company to educate them on the kind of inappropriateness of this. So we're going to delve deep into Baye's background and see what he's all about.
All right, well, why don't you tell us something about yourself, like how did you come to Japan, how did you become a writer, that would be, I think, very interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I came to Japan in 2004. First time I came to Japan was in 2003. I came for a visit, and I stayed a couple of weeks with a friend of mine, and a couple of weeks here, he ready to move. So yeah, I came back, and I was only intending to stay here for a year. But then I met someone, and it really worked out well, so I wound up staying longer. And
what sparked your interest in writing initially?
Well, I've been writing since I was younger. I think the first time I really felt like I could be a writer was in high school.
Okay.
We were given an assignment by my English teacher to write a film script.
Okay.
And I was just fooling around, I just wrote a script, and the teacher was blown away. He gave me a special award in front of the class. I was like, this is the first time I had any acknowledgement for anything, really, that I've done. Creative.
Sometimes you need that recognition, right? Just to kickstart.
It's amazing what the influence that teachers can have on you, I still look back on that now, so many years later. And from that moment, that was the first initial, could I do this? So I wrote my first book before I came to Japan back in 99.
Okay.
And
I don't know about this, but what was?
Well, it never got published, that's why. So I finished it in 99, and on the strength of that, I was able to acquire an agent.
Okay,
and the agent was shopping it around. I was getting a lot of rejection letters, you know how it goes. And they were saying this is great writing, great book, but we just don't know how to market this type of story.
So the blog, how long did the blog run for? You were writing that for a while.
I started the blog in 2008. And this was, I was inspired by Barack Obama because I just didn't imagine America doing anything like that. Yeah, that's not the America I left.
Yeah.
So that was really inspirational for me. I did go home. I went home and was canvassing for Obama in Pennsylvania, one of the battleground states. But I had several motivations for that blog. One was, of course, the band. One was in hopes that maybe an editor would see my writing and say, "Oh, this guy he's not just venting, he's talented venting. He's gifted venting here." And also that. So this is a place to showcase my work and also address some of the issues that weren't being addressed yet. So at that time, there were a lot of Japan bloggers, but very few of them were addressing the elephant in the room, as I call it.
Many people were keeping it real at that stage,
They just weren't, and I wasn't sure why exactly,
I remember you wrote that blog piece, was it The Empty Seat?
That was my first piece.
Was it?
That was my very first post.
I think it was the first one I read, and that was
the very first
amazing,
post went viral. Yeah. And it was because this type of thing was not being talked about. I mean, people will mention it like it's I just put my bag in the sea, I ignore it. I'm like, no. This impacts our experience here. This impacts our everyday lives, It's just, it has a negative impact, whether you want to admit it or not. When people treat other people that way, even though even if your response is to say, "Oh, they don't know any better," that's still kind of a negative response to the people here. So I felt like there's no way that this should be or could be ignored.
Yeah.
From that moment on, when do you feel from a professional standpoint that your career, sort of clearly that blog, that post, like the first, that took you to a different level of exposure, right? After that, to go to national television and like writing many books, when did you feel that your career maybe took a different direction and accelerated, like to actually where you are right now?
When I went mainstream, because initially I was just blogging. Bloggers, even the more prominent ones don't really get any respect. But once the books were published, and they were self-published, so again, it wasn't really respected. Even though it was doing really well and bestseller and this whole thing, but people still were like, "Oh, he self-published it, so he didn't go through the,
And if you don't mind me asking, why did you decide to go that direction rather than mainstream? Was it like a conscious decision, or just like you had to do it that way?
It was the thing then. It was a thing, and I was like, "Oh, I don't have to go through the waiting by the phone, waiting by the email for these guys to decide whether my book is worthy of their publishing house. I can do it myself." Yeah. I was all over that. So. But after the success of the books, I was approached by Japan Times, and they said, "Listen, your books are great, and we could, use your voice in our, publication."
Our audience is mainly like professional people, right? Business people, that live and work in Japan mainly, right? Both Japanese and international, right? And I think we have experience in our career working for big corporation and then going independent. So we kind of went the other way. I think that's sort of you did. When you work for a very large corporation, you do have to, I think, compromise sometimes, on the message. Did you feel that way? Did it impact your message? And
I think I've been pretty fortunate. I thought of myself as kind of like the PR person for blackness here in Japan.
Yeah.
So my job was I felt like the best thing I could do is, I felt like part of the reason there's so many challenges to being black in Japan is because there's limited information about what we're doing here.
Yeah.
And I felt like it was my job to increase that knowledge base by showing them. We also professors and lawyers and doing things that are contributing to society here. And if Japanese knew more about that, maybe they'd be less fearful or less inclined to discriminate against people of African descent. So that was my goal, and that was right in line with what Japan Times was. They were fine with that, So I was able to do exactly what I wanted to do with very little editing.
Perfect. What are the key skills that you need, do you think, to be successful?
Apart from talent, you need to be able to connect with people.
Yeah.
Because particularly when you're writing a column, I need to interview people, so I need to establish a rapport.
Yeah.
And that's never been difficult for me. I've always been kind of, people read my work and think maybe I'm not approachable. When they meet me, it's like, "Oh my God,
Nice guy.
I write a lot harder than I am.
Yeah.
I think that I kind of created a persona in my writing, the local persona, which is kind of a little bit harder than Baye.
Yeah.
And but yeah, I think you have to be able to connect with people, and I think that's true across the board with all kinds of So I've been fortunate to be able to do that.
We actually have one training session which is called painting pictures with words, because as a salespeople, and we don't sell any tangible product, we're selling jobs and opportunities. Basically, it's really important to, I think, master language, the ability to communicate, a message. Is there anything, I don't know, anything that, do you think that people can use to actually, improve their vocabulary and, again, paint picture with the words?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
You mean like even like a journal or a diary or?
keep a journal, a diary. I think blogging helped me improve my writing so much because I was getting instant feedback.
Yeah.
You know, from a variety of sources. You know, I was finding out where I was in my writing in real time. You know, and that was, whoa.
Bit different. What about growing up or even now? Who are your heroes or the people, maybe famous people that have influenced you the most?
Writing-wise, I would say Zora Neale Hurston and James Baldwin. Yeah, those would be the two most influential writers. Chester Himes.
Right.
And these were all writers recommended by my university professor.
Yeah, you mentioned a couple of names already, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and he was right. He picked up on my energy immediately, and he figured out which writers would.
Spot on, yeah.
Yeah, spot on. And he was right.
Yeah.
Raymond Carver. Raymond Carver is a famous short story writer. I'm not sure if you're familiar with his work, but check it out if you haven't.
Yeah, okay. No, this is good for us.
Yeah, those would be the most influential writers.
How about outside
Jim
of
Thompson.
How about outside of writers?
Outside of writers, I'm a Frederick Douglass fan. If you ever read any of his work, it's totally mind-blowing. And this is stuff he was writing in the 1800s. It's just, wow. Wow, he was so, you know, he saw Obama back then. You know, he was far-reaching, his vision.
Well, thank you. That looks really tasty.
It's good, man.
And so yeah, Frederick Douglass. Who else? Stevie Wonder.
Wow, Stevie Wonder.
Yeah, Stevie Wonder. I mean, you know, he's the closest I've ever come to religion. He's my connection to the greater power, whatever it might be. He's it. So yeah, Stevie Wonder. I guess that's amazing.
That's it, huh?
Let's eat the donuts. These are good. Let's go. That's good. So what about what's in the future for you, Baye? What are you working on? What's coming up?
Well, the new book is coming soon.
Okay.
And new book it's kind of 2.0, Baye 2.0.
Okay.
So I think since I wrote the first book, since then it's been, whoa, that was 2012. So you're talking 11 years now.
Yeah.
Some of my approaches to life here in general have been updated and have gone through some transitions. And I think that things I've experienced since then, things I've learned, have better equipped me for handling the challenges that Japan, you know, places in the path of non-Japanese here in Japan. So I want to share some of that with readers.
Without giving anything away from the new book, but could you let us know what is, like right now, what is the most challenging thing that you have to face living in Japan?
One thing I've learned, and I'm not going to give it all away now, but one thing I learned is that you got to surround yourself with good people and good energy.
Yeah.
And I've managed to do that.
That's good advice for wherever you are.
Yeah, wherever you are, you surround yourself as much as possible with good people and good energy.
Yeah.
I think I've been fortunate because I figured that out. I figured that out by accident because you know, I had a lot of private students, private English students.
Yeah.
And these are the people who are actually my friends now.
Right.
Because when you meet someone when I've met people that were not my students, I didn't have the time it takes to get through all the nonsense and get to the real, you know. But with students, we have a relationship that
Kind of know them already, right?
yeah. Even my wife, she was a student before she became my wife.
Controversial.
Yeah. But that's the truth, man.
Yeah.
The truth is, I wouldn't have got to know her, and she wouldn't have gotten to know me on a level below the skin, beneath the the stereotypes and the preconceptions and the presumptions. She wouldn't have been able to get past that. I wouldn't have been able to get past, you know, her surface stuff if we hadn't had that time that we put in as teacher and student. So I think that was one thing I learned.
So, okay, so that's pretty much it for tonight. We got some great steaks. We're done with the YouTube video now. We're gonna eat, have a laugh. We're gonna put all Baye's stuff, all the links that you need to know so you can check out his work, his content in the notes to the YouTube video. So if you don't know him already, check him out, and thanks for watching.